Liberty Nation. Truth is making a comeback.
Hi, Lisa Donner here from Liberty Nation, and with me today is Scott DiCosenza, our constitutional lawyer and our legal affairs editor on LibertyNation.com. Scott, you wrote an article today called Happy 420, Colorado Senator Gardner Prevents Civil War. Is that clickbait, or are you exaggerating a little, or what's the deal with that title?
This is one of those fortunate instances, Lisa, where the headline, I think, does match the content. And while it hasn't been terribly widely reported, I do think it's an accurate statement about where things could have been headed if Gardner and Trump didn't come to an agreement last week.
Okay, so this involves something called the Cole Memorandum. Now, for those who haven't been following this closely, in a nutshell, what is the Cole Memorandum and what happened to it?
As many states legalized marijuana for medical use and then recreational use, that presented an impasse because federal law has and continues to prohibit all marijuana. So possession, sale, cultivation, distribution, you name it. So how then could medical dispensaries in California, recreational dispensaries anywhere, how could they all work if they're in violation of federal law? Well, how they could work is under this thing called the Cole Memo. And what the Cole Memo said was that the federal government is not going to prosecute people who are operating legally under their own state law. So if you're in Colorado and you're farming marijuana consistent with the Colorado rules and regulations on doing so, you were okay. If you were in Virginia, for instance, where there is no such ability to do so legally, then you would be subject to federal prosecution. That was what the Cole Memorandum did when it was put in place under the Obama administration.
All right, so this was the law of the land from when to when?
Well, just so we're clear, it wasn't a law, right? It was basically the Department of Justice. It was guidance sent from Washington, the Department of Justice in Washington, to the various U.S. attorneys throughout the country to say to them, these are the kinds of cases we expect you to be prosecuting. And it, I'm actually checking out, was in 2013 is when it was enacted. And in January, Jeff Sessions withdrew the memo, basically giving a new guidance to the United States attorneys, the ones who bring all the federal criminal cases in our country, that basically they're dialing back the protections offered by the Cole Amendment and saying, go ahead and go forth prosecuting federal criminal law in states where people are being compliant with their own state law, basically just revoking the Cole Amendment.
All right, so let me ask you this. Since the Cole Amendment has been revoked, have people been prosecuted?
Not yet, thankfully. Now, we don't know if Mr. Trump was involved in the Cole Amendment decision to revoke it, but we know that the elected officials from places where marijuana is now legal, and Cory Gardner is a senator from Colorado, and those, the people who run the marijuana businesses there are just like the Coors family. They're just running legal businesses that make a ton of money, and he's now representing their constituency now that they're a legal business. And so he went to the mat to defend the people of Colorado, again, operating legally under state law. And the problem here, Lisa, is that we have this prohibition at the federal level, which Congress refuses to do anything about, even though in state after state after state, we have people voting for legalization. I think the latest poll, which was released in October, was high 60% of people, including a majority of Republicans, all favoring at least decriminalization, if not outright legalization. So this attempt to have a workaround for this untenable law is what was in play here.
Okay, but as we know, it wasn't a law.
Right.
So the law what we're saying
marijuana
then,
is.
All right.
I just wanted to say that that's the law. The marijuana prohibition is the law, and the memorandum was the guidance on how to proceed with the prosecution of that law in court as the federal government.
Okay, so essentially, the first shot has not been fired in this Civil War, because since the Cole Amendment has been revoked, nothing really has happened, right?
Well, no, that's
All
not
right.
true. No federal criminal prosecutions have been started that we know of. But if the people who own stock in marijuana companies and companies that served marijuana related industries in those places were hit massively. You have to remember, this is a multi-billion-dollar industry now. And when you threaten that perhaps those people will be spending time in federal prison rather than being elected to the Chamber of Commerce, that's going to result in lots of consequences, even if those consequences aren't federal criminal prosecution as of yet.
Right. Then you write in your article about something called a pot blockade. Can we talk about that a little bit?
Well, Senator Gardner, after Jeff Sessions revoked the Cole Amendment, Gardner met with him in order to discuss the obvious problems that this would face for so many of his constituents. That meeting yielded an unsatisfactory result, according to Mr. Gardner, and then he put a legislative hold on any judicial department nominees. He was able to block 11 nominees from completing the nomination process, and many more. I think the Denver Post said 20 more were going to be blocked in the near term if he was going to continue. So this was an untenable solution for the Justice Department. And I think, frankly, Lisa, I mean, Donald Trump has campaigned. He did campaign as a moderate on marijuana. You know, he's not a drug warrior. He never was a drug warrior, unlike Jefferson Beauregard Sessions. So we know that Gardner
You're a favorite guy, right?
well, you know,
I know you're a huge Jeff Sessions
price
guy.
of the drug war exacted in so many lives in this country to so little benefit, if any at all. It does lead me to have some profound troubles with General Sessions. But so we know that Trump negotiated directly with Gardner on this issue, and Gardner gave a statement that basically said that Trump is going to embrace federalism on this issue and leave the states alone. Was the chief takeaway, and I think it is a great move on behalf of the Trump administration.
Thanks very much, Scott, and thank you for joining us today on another edition of Liberty Nation TV. Please check out our narrated articles on libertynation.com. And don't forget to read Happy 410, Colorado Senator Gardner Prevents Civil War.
It's
I'm Lisa
420,
K.
just
Donner. All right. I'm Lisa K. Donner, and this has been LNTV.
Liberty Nation. News and commentary, minus the propaganda. LibertyNation.com.